Good morning. It is past 5, almost 5:30 in the morning, 2019, September 3rd. What's interesting about September 3rd is 9 and 3 equal 12, and it's Tuesday. 9 and 3 equal 12, and then 2019 equals 12, and 12 and 12 equals 24, which reduces to 6. And 12 and 12 can be halved into 6, 6, and 6, 6. And I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, which is supposed to be the devil's hour. Tuesday, I would say, would be the devil's day, because it is Mars's day, supposedly. So, interesting what's going on here. But now it is about 5:30 in the morning here in the United States. My name is Mark. I had a dream about my computer. And I was entering my card number for a legitimate payment, but apparently the person on the other end wanted my money. And or somebody on the computer wanted my money in my dream. And there was somebody else in the room with me. And I guess I pushed the wrong button. And then I was trying to undo the damage. And the person that was in the room was pushing other buttons. And the computer said, "Thank you for giving me control of your computer." And so the idea was the guy on the other end was stealing money from me because I had my information in there and my card information. And this is my shirt, my new shirt. Not expensive, and I liked it. I like it. I think he said, "Thank you for giving me control of your computer. Thank you for giving me your card information." Or maybe it was credit card information, he said. But, so, and the person in there, I pushed the wrong button or something at first, and the person in there kept trying to push more buttons that would give him access to anything he wanted on the other end, apparently. And I was trying to push F5 to get. It doesn't mean much to me. I don't use the function buttons. I don't think most people do. But unless maybe they have a printer or something like that, or they use it for the sound. I was pushing S5, F5. And I think somebody else was kind of pushing my hand away and trying to give him access to my information. But I remember very clearly, "Thank you for giving me control of your computer," my computer said. And it could be some psychological trick. Years ago, I had an Asian friend, they call him. I wouldn't call him Oriental because I think the lineage is different. From my knowledge of genealogy, I'd say the lineage is different. So I wouldn't call him Oriental, but I call him Asian. And there was another Asian man there who I would also not call Oriental. And he said, he was talking about different things, and he said, the FBI And my friend, who is Asian too, got a big smile on his face and looked at me. Years before that, back in the early 90s, I was taking care of a quadriplegic. And one of my roommates said, "What if I were to tell you?" He was a foreigner. He was another foreigner. And he said, "What if I were to tell you I'm a secret government agent sent here to investigate Bob? Bob, isn't that ridiculous? Bob, he can barely lift his head. Bob, why would I be sent here to investigate Bob? Bob, why would I be sent here to investigate Bob?" Something like that. It was almost exact. It's pretty much word for word, except for I'm not sure about how many times he said Bob. But I asked him, "Are you a secret government agent?" And he said, "I'm just saying, what if?" And I told my other roommates. It was clear to me. It was clear to me what was going on. So I told my other roommates. I said, "Martin said to me, what if I were to tell you I'm a secret government agent sent here to investigate Bob?" And I told them what he said. And one of them was supposed to be an art student. And he was talking about, he put his finger up like this. And he said, "Some people think that art students have a tiny brain. Very small brain." And he was looking at me across the table. And somebody said, "Well, why are you looking at Mark?" I used to go by my middle name then. He said, "Why are you looking at Mark?" He said, "Why are you looking at Mark?" And everybody was laughing. And he said, "Oh, just because he's there." So the attitude was, well, if you think this is not about you, Mark, then you have a little brain. And there were other things that happened in my life that would indicate government interference. And I took him that he was investigating me when he was telling me that. But I thought, well, why would someone tell another person he's investigating him? Isn't that kind of counterproductive? And what he was doing was he was getting into my brain. He was, as far as I know, I'm pretty sure this was what's happening. He was hypnotizing me. And I found out a lot of people try to do this. They try to hypnotize other people using the devil sign, the index finger, the pinky finger, and they use the devil sign to try to influence people. I've caught people trying to get information out of me or make me say things, I think, that I don't mean. And they use the index finger and the pinky finger together, like they use in concerts. The Sieg Heil symbol that Adolf Hitler used was also a mental symbol. It wasn't just, okay, we all do the same thing to show we're on the same page. It was a kind of mind control. So that's what I found in my past that relates to mind control and the FBI, government influence, mind control, that kind of thing. I'll cut it about here. I do know that government's in my life. That's the only explanation, or somebody's in my life. And I would say it is the government. It's the only explanation for all this stuff that's been happening to me. Stuff that would not have happened to me if I weren't a Christian. And the cover for that, everybody says is, I said, well, I'm going through Christian persecution. The cover for that everybody says is, oh, really? I haven't gone through Christian persecution. I'm a Christian. and my attitude is always the same. Put your money where your mouth is. How do I know you're a Christian? And the Bible says, and it can be from it was from the Roman government back in the time. There was persecution from the Roman government when they realized why the Jews were persecuting the Christians. They got in on the bandwagon. It wasn't just Jewish persecution, but it turned into Roman persecution. And so it is today. Salem, Massachusetts, the Christians were called witches, and the witches called themselves Christians and burned them at the stake, according to John Todd. And I'd say that's right up Satan's alley. That's right up witches' alley. They'll call themselves Christians. They'll do what is necessary to look like Christians, but I'm not as easily deceived with that as I once was. But, you say, well, the Roman government persecuted the Christians. The Hitlerian Nazi government persecuted the Christians. They don't tell you that. But those were the ones one of the main ones they wanted to gas and incinerate and shoot, as they did in Germany, and in Poland, and in Austria, etc. But Paul said, do you want to have no terror of authority? Do what is right, and you will receive praise from the same. He said, because the authorities have no terror for good works, but for evil. And he said, there are messengers of God for your good, for my good. There are messengers of God for my good. So whether my Asian friend was talking about nothing, or my Asian friend's other person was talking about nothing, who was also Asian, or whether he's saying, hey, it's the FBI or the CIA or whoever it is after you, Mark, and I know that. Yeah, I would say that whatever they say, and my friend smiling, my Asian friend smiling, I would say that, they are after me, and that he was telling the truth. And my roommate, who was foreign, who said, what if I were to tell you I'm a secret government agent sent here to investigate Bob? I mean, I know he was implying me. It was the same thing. When I spoke with my fiance, and instead of saying, okay, Mark, I love you, let's get married, she started dodging and weaving and saying there's another man whom I might interpret as God, I guess. Somebody else in her life, she was dating somebody else, she was saying. Or she was dating someone whom she wanted to marry. And I don't want to go into too many details with this at this point, but she was implying that she was in love with me and wanted to marry me. And sometimes implications can be used to deceive. And sometimes implications can be used as an excuse to say, or as a cover to say something that you don't want to say outright. Just before I went to court for my psychiatric hearing, back in, it was about 2000, about 1999, there was a man who was also speaking indirectly, an Irishman. Supposedly he's probably dead by now. Supposedly he was 74 years old or 75 years old. Said he was 74 and he was having a birthday. We were living downstairs in a basement. And for the most part, there was no carpet. There was like a few rugs, or I think there was a rug in my room. And rent was $100 a month. And I don't know where the money went, but I didn't have the money, and I wasn't balancing my checkbook because I was so sick I couldn't even really keep up with balancing my checkbook, which is pretty bad for me. And he talked about going to court, and he said you go to court to get screwed. And then about a week or 2 or 3 or something like that, or a month later, they took me away. The paramedics took me away to put me into a mental institution. And I was in a mental institution, and then the psychiatrist, who would not identify herself as a psychiatrist, and I was just saying, well, if I just remain silent, everything should be fine. That was what I was thinking. If you have the right to remain silent, anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. So I was remaining silent, and my psychiatrist came in. Then I found out, oh, she is my psychiatrist, not just somebody who works here, because she was not saying she was a psychiatrist. And she took me to court. She said she'd lost one case in like 2 years. And I said, how many cases do you have a week? And she said 3. I think she said 3 or 4 or something like that, cases a week, of psychiatric commitment. And I remember when my computer was getting hacked, that I was trying to push the buttons and somebody was pushing my hand away and pushing different buttons, and I was trying to keep them from getting to my credit card information. And I prayed, and I knew in the dream, and I just know in general, everything will be okay. I think somebody would say, well, Mark, you've really messed yourself up now, because now they can say you did a video that says, the FBI or CIA are after you. Now you did a video saying the FBI or CIA are after you. That is the wrong type of thinking. Just like in China, they would talk about in China. I think China, and I think the Soviet Union, in Russia and its satellite states before, they would say that's wrong thinking. It's dangerous thinking. I think that's what they say. Dangerous thinking, dangerous thoughts. This has to come out at some point. And I think it's best that it come out before this is all over. I trust in God. As foolish as that sounds to you, I know there are Christians on the internet. I don't know whether any of them find me. These videos are for Christians mostly. But I understand, if you say the wrong thing on YouTube, somebody will get all the information off of there and say, he said this, And he said that, which means, and then the psychiatric diagnosis. It's certain things are unavoidable. Jesus could have been called stupid or very careless when he answered the high priest and said, "It is as you say," which basically back then would say yes. Basically back then it would mean yes. He said, I adjure you," which means I make you swear, "by the living God, are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed, or the Son of the Blessed God, or the Son of the Blessed One?" And he said, "You say," which means, yes, you said it, that's right. And I think people can just say, "Oh, Jesus, why would you say that? It's going to get you crucified." There is a people who's proclaimed God, self-proclaimed God, does not get people out of binds, that it is just, to them, fake. All right. God bless.